everybody, I'm Tommy, and you're on the boat. Let's see, we got Roberta, Kristen Melinda, good to have you. Tommy Bird, what's happening? Glad you are here. Hey, Kespo, Ashley G, welcome. You know what? This one's kind of somber. And West Coast Fancy Nancy, good to see you. This is a bummer, right? All the way around. This one kind of hurts. Hey, honey, how are you? This is hard. Winchester Super X, good to see you. The Rob Reiner, the famous director and the guy that owned Castle Rock Entertainment. Renee B, good to see you. Wow, that's absolutely horrific. Renee B says she has 3 patients whose kids tried to kill them. The stories were heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, this is patricide and matricide in the same night. Aspire to inspire, good to see you. Just Joan, what's happening? So there's a lot of misinformation that's already coming out, and that's kind of what the internet does. Kay Murphy, good to see you. And it shocks me a little bit because it's not very hard to chase this stuff down, but really big channels, and I don't mean YouTube channels, I mean channels, are reporting a lot of stuff about this that simply isn't true, and we're going to go over some of that stuff. But Rob Reiner is comes from a very famous Hollywood family. Carl Reiner, his father, used to write for the Sid Caesar show with a couple of other great guys, Neil Simon and the guy that did Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks. Audra in Denver, good to see you. Kate Murphy, glad that you are here. So this is a family with a whole lot of history, and early in his career, he married Penny Marshall, the woman that played Laverne on Laverne and Shirley, and adopted one of her children, and she lived on the same property as him. He was, by all accounts, a really fantastic human being. Everybody that worked with him has nothing but really kind things to say about him. Caroline in Canada, good to see you. And you know what? I got rid of Facebook, and it was one of the best things I ever did in my life. However, I can use AI models to see what people on Facebook are saying without having to have it pumped into my life. And it's astounding to me that there are people who are celebrating this because they didn't like how he responded to Charlie Kirk's death, or they didn't like his political stances. The president of the United States sunk to probably the all-time low, and this is a guy that said a lot of really stupid crap in his life, but he said some really stupid stuff about this death as well. That's enough to make you sick. And I'm not trying to split down political lines. When the guy does something that I think is right, I say it. Taylor Miller, good to see you. But what he said about this is absolutely unconscionable and difficult to forgive. I don't care whether or not somebody's politics align with yours. When you start saying stupid shit when someone dies, there's just no excuse for that. There just isn't, and it's just kind of ugly. This guy made some of the best films of my life. One of my favorite films of all time is This Is Spinal Tap. That genre that gave us all kinds of other mockumentaries, we call them now. There was no such thing as a mockumentary. Yeah, he was absolutely very left-wing. He certainly was. But this isn't the kind of crap that should matter. You know what I mean? Truthfully, like, and this is why I think that every once in a while you see someone, and Johnny Carson was great at this. I played a clip of him once when they were needling him on an interview about where he stood politically, and he said, "I'm never going to tell anybody that, ever." And when they asked him why, he said, "Because there's a lot of people that love me who might be influenced just because of what I think, and I would never want anybody influenced politically because they like my comedy." And I thought that was kind of genius. You know, if you could sort of stay out of that. Dolly Parton, right? There are a lot of big names where you just, I mean, you might assume, well, she's in country music, she's probably right-wing, but you have no idea because they don't make any statements. However, whatever you decide your political views are, I love his art, right? The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men. I mean, this guy made so many fantastic films, and if you're a fan of Seinfeld, Castle Rock was the company that produced Seinfeld. This guy gave us a lot. In fact, I was trying to put a concise list of his film accomplishments. The number of things that he has been an actor in. I mean, you can think, well, he was in Spinal Tap. You know, he was in Wolf of Wall Street. When I tell you that there's literally 250 credits that they have him listed as actor on, I'm not exaggerating. It takes like 8 minutes to read through that. And when you start reading all of the films that he did, all of the television programs, this is a guy that just never, ever seemed to stop working. And right before his death, the sequel to Spinal Tap has just come out. And again, every other mockumentary, the Best in Show, which is one of my favorite films recent. I get a big laugh out of that. We watch it almost every time we're together. It's just one of those movies that will never not make me laugh. All of that genre was invented, right, by Rob Reiner. No one really did that prior to him, where they come together, and for the most part, there's no script in that. They tell you kind of what they want out of the scene, but they go in and wing it, and they just improvise. And that kind of genius is, it really gives actors an opportunity to do things that you're never going to have an opportunity to see again. Yeah, this is actually boom. That'd be a mic drop these days. Just imagine if everybody kept their political stance private. Man, would that be what a world. And you know what? Here's the sad thing is that you could talk about your political views back in the day because you wouldn't be crucified for it. But now there are people that are going to hate this man who just got his throat slit, and his beautiful wife who just got her throat slit. And whenever two people are killed, I don't know whether or not this is lost on people, right? Because we're so used to hearing about death, and horrific death. Andrea Malloy, good to have you here. We're so used to hearing about vicious and ugly deaths that I don't know if it's occurred to you, but one of those people had to watch their mate get killed. They didn't get killed at the same time. So one of them had to watch their kid, allegedly, kill the other. And that's really a traumatic ass way to leave planet Earth, right? Just horrific. And by all accounts, the son is absolutely incarcerated, right? They've got him locked up on this. And right now he is locked up on suspicion of double murder. They haven't charged him with it. That process takes a hot minute. It'll probably be tomorrow. Usually they do it within about 72 hours if they're pretty sure. And by all accounts, they're pretty sure. One of his daughters, Romy, apparently found the bodies. Romy lives across the street. His adopted daughter, who was in the films, let me see here. She was in, I remember she did the Apollo 13 one. Oh, and A League of Our Own. She was in that as well. She was an actress kind of in her own right. And it's just sort of a sad thing. They were very tight-knit as a family, except for her son, right? Their son, I should say. Nick really had problems. He struggled very, very heavy with drugs. Kevin Arthur in Lakeland, Florida, good to see you. This is a subject that we talk about a lot on the boat, right? This guy had a very bad drug problem. And by all accounts, it started prior to 15. So it had to be 14, maybe even before that, because this is on his 15th birthday, allegedly, right around his 15th birthday was the first of his 20 stays in rehab. There have been, there's a lot being made about his $4 million bond. There is not a $4 million bond. Now, very often when someone is first booked in on a charge, a computer is automatically going to throw a bond down there. And then when the prosecutors come down and actually, he is being held on no bond. I know it's being reported all over the place. Nancy Grace reported it. A lot of people are reporting a $4 million bond. That's not a fact. He's being held without bond. Kathy Clarnett, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Truthfully, who's going to make his bond anyway? Ragnar, oh my word. Good to see you, man. Yeah, he says, I'm guessing the son was still addicted. Well, there's a lot that would lead us to believe that. Now, we don't know that for sure, but he was a very equal opportunity drug user, or a abusive drug user. He did and was addicted to a lot of things over the course of his life, but heroin was sort of the bane of his existence for a long time. And there was a period of time, and they did a film about this. It was a script that the two of them wrote together, and it was very much about drug addiction. It's a very heavy film, and kind of a difficult one to get through. I believe it was called something about Charlie, I believe was the name of the film. If not, it was definitely had the word Charlie in it. But it was written by Nick and somebody that he met in rehab, and then he and his father worked on the film together. And it was a bonding moment for them, right? The kid was sober, things were good, and they were kind of coming back together. But if you ever watch the film, it's kind of autobiographical, right? This is about a child who really had a tough time. He was a son of privilege, right? And what that means trying to get sober. His parents we're long on money and short on understanding when it comes to things like addiction. And what family would understand this, right? If you're, to find out your kid is addicted to heroin, it's got to be the biggest gut punch in the world, right? It's really an ugly situation, right? But they hired the best of the best. They hired people with an awful lot of letters after their name. And I was watching a lot of stuff today, deep diving on this. And Rob Reiner, in an interview, was talking about tough love and how they said, you got to kick him out. You got to kick this kid to the street, right? He's a liar. He's manipulating you. Kick him to the street. This happened, and they kicked him out. And by his story, he was homeless in Texas. He was homeless in California. He was homeless in Maine. Spent a lot of nights outside, and that's hard, living on the street, right? This is a difficult thing. And he was on a flight on the way to Boston, and they didn't give a lot of details. It could have been a drug overdose. It could have been, but he was unconscious on the plane, and they landed, and he woke up in rehab. Love my life. Good to see you. Glad you're here. This is a tough situation, right, for a family to try to keep this going, and they didn't quit. But as Rob Reiner said, and as the film that they did together kind of highlighted, for a family that doesn't have a clue what to do, you're probably going to trust people that have years of experience. They may not have ever done a drug, but they've read every book out there. And I've talked a lot about tough love on my channel. The number of parents that have reached out to me and said, they told us to do tough love, and then they found our daughter behind a dumpster with a needle in her arm, or my son was never seen again. And I dated a girl whose brother, he was an A student, never done anything wrong, literally never done anything wrong. And he came home drunk 2 days before graduation, and his mother said, "You're not coming into my house if you've been drinking." And they didn't see him again for 3 years. When his body was finally pulled, he had fallen through ice and drowned. Tough love is hard, right? And as Rob Reiner said in an interview, your number one job as a parent is to protect your kid. And if your kid is really messed up on drugs and your response is, "See ya," you're not really there to protect them. I mean, tough love got a lot of traction back in the 80s. You can't blame any parent who has no idea what to do. But Rob Reiner himself said, "I think I made a mistake. And if I could do it all over again, I would do it differently." And I think that pained him. But recently, both parents have been confiding in friends and saying, "We're at the end of our rope." This is what they would call in the business dual diagnosis. This kid obviously had some mental illness. This was not just a matter of drug addiction. When they did kick him out of the house, I believe it was either the first or second time that they did the tough love thing. He had destroyed their guest house. In an interview that I watched, he said that he went 10 rounds with the guest house, punched the TV screen, then started punching lamps, and just literally destroyed the entire place. That's terrifying, right? That's frightening. When drug addiction becomes violence, now you're looking at this going, you know what? I tend to agree with you, right? We talk about trauma all the time on here. And if you, at the time that you really felt like you needed your parents the most, and maybe, and trust me, I'm not defending this guy. He killed his mother and his father. But I think that it's one of those situations where you have to kind of evaluate, so at least we understand what's happening. Tough love very often causes huge rifts. It doesn't always cause someone to end up dead behind a dumpster with a needle in their arm, right? Or pulled from a lake, a couple of years later. Sometimes what it does is, this kid wants the attention of parents who are very wrapped up in a world of working every day, 16 hours, flying from one movie set to the next one, and doing everything they can to kind of go with a career that's a career that takes a lot of time away from people, right? If you ever hear Steve Jobs' kids talk, didn't spend a whole lot of time with his kids. If you're building that kind of dream, then your kids kind of get neglected. And sometimes that causes a kid to feel unloved. Sometimes that unloved they lash out because shitty attention is better than no attention, right? And if I do something really crazy, dad at least has to deal with me. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I'm saying it happens a lot. And then as you get older, we all know this. Everybody in here knows this. As you get older, those are the things that cause you to not be the person that you may have developed into, right? Early childhood trauma wrecks you. And if you felt abandoned at the worst time of your life, your parents went, get out. That's the kind of thing that can leave a very long-lasting wound. And I think the film that they did together probably tried to maybe mend that a little bit. But when you hear the son in the interviews, I watched all of the interviews that the two of them did together, and the son would say, you know what, this was my dad's world. Like, I've never made a movie. So he said, while we may not have talked through everything, watching my dad and saying, well, this is his world and I'm going to watch what he does, because this is really how my dad is best at showing emotion. And that sentence was like getting kicked in the stomach. The kid also said in another interview that his other brother loved baseball. He was more of a basketball guy, but his dad was more of a baseball guy. So the two of them would sit and watch television, and the other son kind of felt shunned because when the stuff he dug came on, there was no ability to sort of hang out there. But I do think it's worth talking about One Love. I think that that's absolutely important. You have to protect your own safety. I have a friend whose son beats her up, and he is in his 30s, and she has to take care of everything. If someone's putting hands on you, that's not, not reporting them is not helping them. Send them to prison, for real. And maybe the first time doesn't work. Maybe they got to go back a second time. Maybe they got to go back a third time. But you do have to protect yourself first. It's not okay for somebody to be violent towards you, and you're not helping them out by saying, well, I'm not gonna call the police. I'm not gonna do this. That's different than tough love. You have to love yourself first. We talk about this all the time. No one's ever gonna love you more than you love yourself. And if a kid knows that they can do this, especially someone on drugs, then the manipulation will start to become toxic. All drug addicts manipulate parents. They do it for the purpose of getting dope money or getting dope or getting whatever it is they want. But all drug addicts manipulate people. It's almost the defining characteristic, right? The fruit of addiction is lies. And those lies are intended to manipulate so that they can keep that drug addiction going, right? That's your number one goal is to just keep the drug addiction going. You got to feed that habit. But when it becomes violent, you can't at that point say, well, I'm just trying to protect my kid. They're going to escalate this. And I think that when he trashed the guest house, that probably would have been a really good time for really heavy duty police intervention, because this isn't a cry for help anymore. This is a sign of something that is worse than drug addiction. I've been around a lot of drug addicts in my life. I've worked with a ton of drug addicts since getting sober. They don't traditionally trash homes. This is what I meant by this is a dual diagnosis. There's some very serious mental problems going on with this kid. And toward the end of the run, once he came back and he was off the road and he had reconciled with his family, his father took him to every event they went to, even if he wasn't invited. By all accounts and all research I can do, Hollywood hated the kid. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just telling you what's out there, right? Hollywood disliked this kid. And I think the reason that they did is because Hollywood loved the parents. Beyond belief, they loved the parents. Because again, whether you dig his political views or not, I don't care. But he happened to be a very likable guy. Everybody that you just don't find people that say Rob Reiner was a dick, except maybe our president. I didn't find a lot of people who, for any other reason than politics, said this wasn't a good dude. Everybody that worked with him loved him. And I find it difficult to wrap my brain around that this is where we end up, right? But everyone in Hollywood was sick of this kid, sick of what he was doing to the parents. And when your parents have that kind of money, 20 rehabs this kid went in and out of, do the math on what that costs. And you can go, wow, the guy's got insurance. If you put your kid through 20 rehabs, you got any idea what your insurance is going to be? And a large percentage of these were after he was, the age of where he would be a kid. So dad had to be paying for the insurance or just writing a check to everyone that he went to. And I won't go off on how bad the rehabilitation centers in the U.S. are. I won't. But most of them are designed to not get it right the first couple of times. If they can cure you the first time, that's not a great business model for scumbags that are trying to make money. But if they have 5 different centers and they start with this, your kid's smoking a little pot, maybe you send them to this one. But if a kid's, shooting $400 or $500 worth of heroin a day, maybe that's not the rehab you should go to. Maybe you should go to the most severe and restrictive one, the one that really takes the most time and digs deep and sort of pounds that in. But that's not what happened, right? They walk them through all of these processes so that they can get money. And that's a terrible thing, but it's also a fact. And well, Wendy R., I'm glad that you're here. And anything Christmas is probably a good reason to be late. So he wasn't a popular guy, the kid in Hollywood, and he's listed as a screenwriter. That's about the Something About Charlie's, I think, the only screenplay that he wrote that was made. And I saw the film. I thought it was a good film. But if his dad wasn't his dad, I don't know whether they would have made it. Movies like that aren't popular. They just aren't. I mean, if you look at how many movies actually tackle drug addiction in a serious way, it's not a feel-good film, right? It's not. Harry Met Sally's a feel-good film, right? The Princess Bride, those are fun movies. Even A Few Good Men. All of these kind of they make money. Chicka Cherry Cola, good to see you. Something About Charlie got critical acclaim from a lot of people, but it wasn't something that was going to make a lot of money. And those kind of scripts, tend not to, and they're hard to get made. Less Than Zero was a really incredible book, and the movie that was made of it was powerful. And people my age will talk about it, but it wasn't one of those films that gets remembered like The Breakfast Club, right? Or any of the other films that came out in that time. Those are heavy subject matter that most people don't want to talk to. Had chemo today, got to take a break. Thanks for discussing this, Tommy. Can we get some ones and some prayers for Kate Murphy? Hang in there. Well, I'm telling you, hang in there. I have very high hopes for this. And chemo's tough, right? Knocks you down. Thank you for stopping in and saying hello. Yeah, this is a hard one to talk about. It's depressing. Even the what just happened to what was the guy that wrote Less Than Zero? Ellison? Yeah, I think his name was Ellison. Somebody check that for me. I believe the guy who wrote his name was Ellison. I read the book too. It's really a difficult thing to hear about two parents getting killed, and getting killed with knives. When I heard it was knives, even when the first rumor started to come out, killing someone with a knife is personal, right? It's incredibly personal. There you go, Brett Easton Ellis. Well played. Well done. Thank you, Andrea Malloy. Thank you, Chow Yun Smut. You can shoot somebody, and it's not that get in your face. Anytime that someone kills someone with a knife, unless it's one of those things where a fight breaks out and somebody pulls it, if you show up and you kill someone with a knife, that is incredibly personal. And it usually shows a deep level of hatred. And I think that when all of this plays out, when the daughter went over and found the bodies and she called the police, allegedly, she said, I guarantee you my brother did this, right? That is what is being alleged. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually a fact, because when you watch someone spiraling this badly out of control, sadly, I think this isn't going to be a shock to the people that knew him, because he was spiraling right out of control. This was somebody that was circling the drain. And the mother, had recently said, we're not going to turn our back on him, but we just don't have any idea anymore what to do. And I think that a lot of times in situations where you blame your parents for every problem that you have in your life, this isn't shocking. I mean, I wish it was, but it isn't. And I have said this, if you can go back and watch me from the very first time I came on here. And I said, the problem with rehabilitation in the United States of America is their business model is to create a straw man, right? Because the addiction's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's someone else's. Because if we can eliminate guilt from the equation, right, then we have a much better chance of you actually staying sober. They say hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, right? Those are the things, halt. Those are the things that send you back. I say G is the most important letter. Guilt, right? You get sober and you realize, good God, in the last 30 years, you know how many people I hurt? And then you start going over that in your head. And that guilt will send you back to something that takes guilt away really quickly. Alcohol, heroin, pain pills, cocaine, meth, all of these things release so many brain chemicals. You're like, shit, that ain't my fault, right? Who cares? And it's a never-ending cycle, especially for a guy like Nick, whose problem was heroin. You get dope sick, you're instantly guilty. You're not just vomiting, defecating on yourself. You all of a sudden realize that you're not a great person, and that, look at what I'm doing with my life. And you start feeling all of this guilt. Then you go to rehabs who go, talk to me about your childhood. and you start to talk about it. And the first inkling, Mom, good to see you, buddy. Jamie Palmer, glad you're here. The first inkling they get of, oh, wait a sec. So your brother did this to you when? It's your brother's fault. I have an ex whose father was a raging alcoholic, and very functional. Went to work, had a very high paying job, wasn't beating anybody in the family, but had a vicious alcohol problem. And when she went to rehab, hello, Lumen, they said to her, it's your husband and your father. It's not your fault. And by the grace of God, when the realization came on that it wasn't anybody's fault, right? That no matter what they did to you as a kid, you still made the decisions that got you where you were at. She managed to survive that wave of guilt, but she got through it. Most people don't. That realization of, holy crap, this may not be all their fault, will usually send you back to the needle. Now, it is being reported, allegedly, Conan O'Brien has a Christmas party every year. Rob Reiner and Conan O'Brien have worked together on shows. They know each other well, and he and his wife went to his Christmas party the night before. Hello, Petras. Went to a Christmas party at Conan O'Brien's the night before they ended up dead, or the evening of. And by all accounts, there was an argument between mom and dad and son Nick that got loud enough so that everybody heard it. Now, no one is, maybe the way to say it is, people are being classy enough to not say what that argument was about. Because if everybody kind of remembers, or hears an argument that's so memorable, they're like, yeah, that was a banger. They probably heard what the people were talking about. I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is an opinion. You hear that? Opinion. But very often with people who are in recovery, you're allowed to go to a Christmas party and there's an open bar. Now, this is also Hollywood, California. So there's probably a couple of people there doing a little, Bolivian marching powder or eating a couple of pills or whatever. My guess would be that it very easily could have been an argument over him using. There have been claims that he was sober since 2018. His parents wouldn't be saying, we have no idea what to do about his mental illness and his drug use to their friends if he was sober. And I'm not, in few name anomalies here, I want to get Disclosure Heron, good to see you. Remember the false memories implanted by sketchy therapists, like the McMartin case that at the daycare center, which destroyed a family only to find out that the therapists really were doing some really sketchy stuff. The satanic panic was caused by a lot of therapists that just downright suck. It's what did I miss? My sister was a raging alcoholic because she was undiagnosed, untreated depression and anxiety sufferer, self-medicating. I'm so sorry, Cricket, I really am. And this goes on a lot. And sadly, it used to go on because people didn't want their neighbors knowing they had an alcoholic child, or they didn't want their neighbors thinking that their child was a drug addict, because for the longest time, if a kid's on drugs, everybody would go, boy, I wonder what the parents did wrong to raise this kid. There are great parents that raise drug addicts. There are fantastic parents that don't do anything wrong who raise drug addicts. It is a coping mechanism that some people find themselves trapped in. Doesn't make you a shit parent if you have a kid who's on drugs. And if you're beating yourself up for that, if you're saying, where did I go wrong? Man, unless you were beating your kid or you were doing something that instantly you know exactly what it is you did wrong. If you have to spend months or years trying to figure out the answer to that question, it might just be that your kid was a drug addict. And there's no handbook, because you can't write a handbook for what to do if your child's on drugs. And the reason you can't is because every single case is different, right? It just is. Now, he had been on a couple of talk shows where he said after 2018 that he was sober, but not really, because he was still taking Adderall and he was smoking weed. I don't give a crap about any of that. If the kid was off of heroin, I feel like that's kind of a big deal. However, very often people that say, well, I'm doing a little of this, may not just be doing a little of anything. There is a genetic component to substance abuse, Renee B. In fact, that one can't even be debated much these days. There's absolutely a genetic component to it. And when I talk about this, I always talk about it kind of like type 2 diabetes. You have the precursor. Now, if you live a life where you go out of your way to not do sugar, and you're you're not drinking a bunch of sugary beverages, and you don't mess with alcohol. There's things that you can do to really decrease the odds that you're going to get that. On the flip side of that, if you eat like a Viking and you take tons of sugar in and you don't really take care of yourself, you're going to hasten the onset of that diabetes. Doesn't make diabetes not a disease. There are choices, right, that can take a precursor and turn it into a disease later in life. That's what addiction is. If you, let's say you have a predisposition to being an addict and you find yourself living in a place where there is no booze, there is no drugs, right? You end up on Gilligan's Island. Well, then it doesn't much matter that you have the predisposition to being an addict, because there's not going to be much there, that you can put into your system, or you're so aware of it because of what your parents were or whatever. I have a daughter that's never touched a substance because she knows she's a ticking time bomb, right? If she tries anything, doesn't mean she doesn't have the disease. It just means that she's not going to allow it to get into her life. But the investigation is going to go on. When they locked down the house after Romy, the daughter, called on this, when the house was locked down, they went in and treated it as a crime scene. Those bodies were in there for a very long time, and they're going to go in there and look for forensic evidence. When somebody stabs somebody and it's in close contact and all of that, it's rare that the person isn't going to at least try to do something. And you get transfer DNA. We're always dropping DNA. Like if you could see it through one of those devices that allows you to see in microscopic, we just drop DNA everywhere we go. Literally, you pick up a glass, you're leaving DNA on it, right? We lose 40 pounds over the course of our life of skin cells, right? We just drop stuff everywhere. When you start freaking out, it's like when you see cats fight and they say the fur's flying. You watch that in super slow-mo, the fur starts flying before they even start fighting. It's a bizarre kind of a situation. The same thing kind of happens with humans. So if he's in there fighting, hand to hand with mom and dad, they're looking for anything that he left behind. And I would imagine they're going to find microscope. There's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Tommy Bird. I would imagine they're going to find DNA there. I would imagine that they're going to find evidence all over the place there. And they still have to build a case on this, right? Even if the world kind of already assumes that this guy did it, the family kind of assumes this guy did it, everyone is talking as if he does, you still have to build a case. You got to go in there and prove that he was there at that time, right, that he did this. And whether it was $4 million bond or no bond, he would have called his parents. If he had done this to 2 other people, his parents probably would have bailed him out. They just kept bailing him out in life. They just kept sending him to rehab after rehab and trying to keep him as close to the family as he could so that he wouldn't get back out into the world that tough love, sort of pushed him into. And I think the guilt of Rob Reiner and his wife, Rob Reiner talked about it a lot. He said, I trusted anybody with a degree in this, and I shouldn't have. I knew my kid better than they did, and I let them tell me to kick him out. And it went against everything that I believed in. That's hard, man. It really is. That's hard. And what's even harder is that imagine they would find his DNA there. It's their kid. It's probably everywhere. Disclosure, Aaron, you're right. However, when you're talking about somebody killing somebody with a knife, in movies, it's very clean. In real life, it is not. It's hard to keep a handle on something. Yes, the documentary was it wasn't a documentary as much as it was a film based on his life, kind of autobiographical, at least using him. But it was Being Charlie was the name of it. Thank you. They get cut. There's very often the guy wielding the knife will also get cut, or he will get scratched. And if the kid's DNA is under their fingernails, right, it probably shouldn't be there. Or if there's skin cells under the fingernails. And again, one of these 2 people had to be killed first. So there's a decent chance that the other one may have tried to intervene. I would imagine that they're not going to, it would shock me if they don't come out of there with some evidence. Normally, and I'm not trying to be macabre, but normally when someone is killed with a gun, it gets a little bit more difficult. If somebody is killed with a knife, there's usually, because it's more personal, you're not doing it from 10 feet away. You have to get up on somebody. And by all accounts, again, it's not pleasant, but there were multiple stab wounds, and there was there was also a coup de grace. Both of them apparently had their throats slit. This is just going to be ugly for the world. I would recommend, more than anything else, because somebody earlier said, how do we keep this kind of thing from happening? You love your kids, you do the best you can. And if they're if they start showing signs where they're dangerous, because drug addicts, for the most part, you may not believe this, but drug addicts normally don't turn violent in this kind of situation. But when he trashed a house that no one was in, he was in there alone and destroyed the entire place, right? The guest house just got destroyed. And by all accounts, there wasn't even anything that led up to it. Okay, now someone is showing you violence. They're not getting the attention they want, or something in their life some needs not being met. And they believe that thrashing something, punching things until they're all broken is going to get them that attention. And instead of getting them that attention, it gets them kicked out on the street. What they should have done was call the police, in my opinion. So if this was the same situation and it happened to me, I'd have called the cops. And then I would have gone down and visited my kid the next day and looked at him through glass and just said, you know what? What you did was not only illegal, but it's terrifying and it's dangerous. And as much as I love you, you're never going to hurt your mom or me, right? That's not going to happen. So we're going to figure this out. I'm not leaving you, right? You're my kid. But I sure as shit, I'm not going to let you walk around doing stuff like this, because this is dangerous, not just for me, it's dangerous for you, right? And for everybody else around. There are nieces and nephews, and it's terrifying. And what's sad is if you go watch any of the interviews with he and his father when they were making this film. So anytime a film is done, there's going to be a promotion afterwards. And if you've never seen one of these, it's, yeah, exactly. So it's certainly a difficult situation, right? But when you go to do one of these promotional things, you sit in a room and they just bring one interviewer after another. So they'll be like, Sun Times, this is Tommy with the Sun Times. And he sits down and asks you 10 questions. And the next jackwagon comes in from the New York Times and asks the same 10 questions. And you might have to do this for 8 hours. And every once in a while, these guys try to get creative and they ask a question that's a little bit different. They all want to at least bring 1 or 2 questions. Hey, what was it like working with your dad? Like every single one of them is going to ask that. You know, was this healing? I know that you've had problems in the past, and you just answer the same questions. If you watch the look on Nick's face, he didn't look healed or well to me. When his father was talking and just being open and honest, his father was talking about how this isn't, you know, this is not the father I wanted to be. That's heavy to hear your dad sit there and say, and hopefully bringing this together, right? And making this will heal us. And I hope that I come out of this maybe a better father. And there's silence. The kid doesn't say anything. And he says, I don't know that it did. You know, I hope it did. Nothing. Now, if that were my dad, I would have had to say, you were a good dad going into it. I would have had to say something. But to watch the kid, he's dropping the microphone and just holding it like this while his dad's talking, it's disturbing. And I wasn't looking for that. I just wanted to hear the answers. DNV, I said that when I first started today. It absolutely sickened me what the president of the United States said. And I don't care whether you lean left, right, middle, you don't lean at all. To say something about, hello, Roberto, to say something about this tragedy and bring it back to politics and your presidency, I can't think of anything more low budget on planet Earth, honestly. Today, I would have liked to punch him in the face as hard as I could. I really would have. It just seemed to me to be so low budget. To do what was done to me displays a whole lot of rage. Yeah, it really does. And from Massachusetts. And premeditation, right? I don't think he went over there for an argument. I don't. I think he went over there to kill his parents. Now, we will see. I told you this is my opinion. I'm not telling you this based on anything that, you know, that has been leaked or anything that people are talking about yet. But the argument started at a party, right, at Conan O'Brien's house. Allegedly, TMZ said this. A lot of other agencies are reporting this. And when they walk out, right, of that house, then to go, I'm going to go over to the house and handle this, or even confront them. That's a kind of, you know, that shows premeditation to me. I mean, yeah, he could have gone over there and started an argument. His dad was 78, right? And his mom was 68. These aren't people that don't need to, you know, you're going to go over and kill 2 elderly people. That's not something a leader says. Dear God, you know what? It shouldn't be something that anybody says. For real. And I agree with you. Leaders absolutely shouldn't. But nobody should. If you find yourself saying, well, you know what he said about this person, man, shut up, right? Get your shit together. This is a family that just had two people's throats slit, right? Either dad watched mom or mom watched dad get their throats slit by their own flesh and blood, patricide and matricide. And one of them had to watch it. This is the scariest thing in the world to me. And the fact that people can take any kind of joy in this makes you one of the biggest scumbags on earth. So do you think he had no respect or love for his parents? When you see what he said, disclosure, Aaron, is I think that this was all caused by Trump derangement syndrome, because this man was very vocal about the Russia collusion narrative and all of that stuff. And he said, yeah, it's probably caused by Trump. Just a stupid, stupid thing to say. Sling Blade says, anytime someone kills another person with a knife, it's deeply personal. It takes a different mentality to kill with a knife. Scary. I agree. I said that earlier. 100% I agree. Tommy, do you think he might be showing some sort of schizophrenic? Yeah. I'm not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to diagnose somebody, even if I'm sitting in the room with them. So I wouldn't. But there's something here. This is dual diagnosis, and I feel very confident saying that. This is a really. This is a guy that didn't just suffer from drug addiction, right? There's some heavy stuff going on, and what's hard is very often it's a difficult thing when someone is addicted to drugs, because very often they're self-medicating anyway. They're going out and getting heroin to take away pain, and then you go and you get them to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, people that understand what's actually going on, right? Not the ones that Rob Reiner was complaining about, but people that get this, and they say, there's probably Puka Vista, there's probably a chemical imbalance here of some kind. The drug addict doesn't want to take a drug that is going to level him out. Level him out just means that now you have to start dealing with this, right? Heroin means you don't have to deal with it. Self-medicating means, I'm taking care of it, right? Forget that crap. You just want to make me normal like everybody else. I want the pain gone. And sadly, for the pain to be gone, you're going to have to go back to that time that whatever, right? Where the tough love said, no, you know what? You're gone. Get out of my house. At a time where you just needed a hug. And maybe the stuff that you were lashing out at was to try to get attention from a father that loved you to death, but probably spent 200. It's hard to understand the career of parents if all you need is for someone to sit down next to you. You know what I mean? It's hard. I absolutely love Rob Reiner's work. His dad, Carl's, too. Yeah, I mean, they really did give us a lot. And somebody said All in the Family. He started out playing Meathead, right? Michael Meathead Stivic, the Polak. I know I'll catch crap for that, but that's what the guy called him on the show all the time. That show, it's so sad to me that shows like that could never be made today. And I hear people go, that show was racist. You watch that show and think it's racist, you literally are slow. And I mean Forrest Gump slow. That show was highlighting an idiot. It was showing the world what an idiot is. My first dose of racism was that show. And I didn't walk away thinking Archie Bunker was intelligent. I didn't walk away thinking he was cool. I walked away thinking, that dude's an idiot. And that was what that show did. We could never make that today because the whole world would need a friggin' timeout, right? And a room with Play-Doh and crayons to color shit. It's sad to me that's, that pushed boundaries, and it did it in a way that actually made people talk about stuff. Blazing Saddles. Try making Blazing Saddles today. You'd never make that. So what makes you think it was premeditated? Back to he didn't love or respect them. When his parents walked out and he decided to leave that party and go over to the house, probably pissed off. I suppose he could have gone in there and gotten into an argument with him and then grabbed a knife from somewhere and started slinging it at him. It's not and the other thing, Renee B, that makes me think that it's premeditated is how the family, right, the allegedly the 911 caller, who was the daughter, right, her name is Romy, when she called and said my parents are dead, allegedly, she said, and I guarantee my brother did it. So everybody kind of thought that this was one of the things that was coming, right? That this is kind of what was happening. Unfortunately, mental health isn't a big deal in California. Unfortunately, mental health isn't almost makes you think that he might have been abused in some way, says Mike. And you know what? I completely understand where someone is coming with that. But that doesn't necessarily, mean that it could have been at home. Somebody goes out for tough love and you're addicted to heroin, the things that he may have done to get heroin. Because here's the deal. If they cut you off from money, you got to come up with money every single day to do heroin. And you can steal, right? Or you can sell yourself. So maybe he got in with crowds of people. We could speculate till the end of time, but he definitely had issues, and there were anger issues, right? That were displayed throughout his life. And he actually talked about the incident where he destroyed the guest house. I saw it on a podcast. Actually, let me rephrase that. I heard it on a podcast. I don't think there's any video of it. But he laughed about it, right? And he said, yeah, I went 10 rounds with the guest house. And he was giggling about it. And it's really hard for me to understand the ability to laugh at trauma that you put your family through if you don't hate them. Because I can talk about things that I did to my parents. I sure as shit can't laugh through them. I just can't. And I don't know. I've really spent a lot of time with drug addicts, and more drug addicts that were on heroin than anything else. Yeah, for real. Like being Charlie's heavy, man. And watching it will give you a little bit of insight, because there's definitely some autobiographical stuff in there. But it's just kind of I feel bad for the kid. I really do. But I've worked with a lot of heroin addicts, and they don't kill people. They don't. They just want to do dope. Yeah, I can see where laugh or cry, perhaps. Best to laugh. I just have never seen that with addicts, right? I mean, maybe if they're still in full-blown addiction, but once you begin to come off of the dope, the overwhelming sense of what you've done to the people in your life will eat you alive if you don't come to grips with it and work through it. It'll just send you right back to dope. And there are a lot of people out there, or what you did to yourself, right? We talked about selling your body. I know I've worked with people that prostituted themselves for a decade and a half. Now you get sober and you remember every one of those horrific experiences, and they're too much to deal with. And I remember a woman in particular. I was going to say we'll call her. There's no reason to call her anything. But I worked with someone who said, I'm just going to go back to doing it. She said, I've really given this hell. I've given it every single attempt that I possibly can, but I'm never going to be able to come to grips with what I did to myself. And I'd never heard anyone say that. I've heard people say that all the time about other people, but I stole, right? I stole, and I absolutely victimized people. I stole from people, right? And I victimized stores, and I did all of that stuff. But when you're 225 pounds and you're 6'2", you have options available to you that, a woman who's 115 pounds doesn't have. And it's just, it's horrible what people have to go through. Hold on one second. Know nothing or seeing anything about this story, but I'm in a family with multiple addictions, and it's not sad, it's pathetic. Grow up. Would that be for me or them, John? And you might want to look up the word pathetic and see what it means, right? What does pathetic mean? Because the last time I looked it up, it's just a synonym for sad, isn't it? And it is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. It's sad. It's sad that a guy that with that many opportunities and everything laid out in front of him found himself in a situation that he couldn't get out of. It's sad that 2 people are dead, and it's sad that a 3rd life is thrown away. Maybe you should take a little time and work with a bunch of addicts, right? Every single one of them has a different story, and every one of them is sad. Every one of them is pathetic. So is mine. It's kind of the nature of what it means to get sober. No, Audra in Denver, you're not blocked again. You've never been blocked once. You've never even seen the actor. He's not an actor. So before you start rattling off really well thought out opinions, I'm gonna try to bust your balls. But no, this is not. This is a director. You may have seen something about Mary. I mean, I'm sorry, When Harry Met Sally, or The Princess Bride, or A Few Good Men. He produced The Seinfeld Show. He has hundreds of credits to his name. He has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, as does his father. He was just a family man who had a beautiful family, 4 kids. 3 have been very successful and have done great, and 1 didn't. One just has a vicious drug problem and has gone through 20 rehabs and sort of has really tried, by all accounts, to try to get sober. But I think that there was some dual diagnosis stuff there. I think he had some mental illness. But over the couple of days ago, he killed his parents, allegedly. He's arrested for it. John, addiction doesn't give a shit if you're rich. It doesn't give a shit if you're poor. And it doesn't give a shit if you're black, white, yellow, purple, green, tie-dyed. One of the beautiful things about addiction is it has absolutely. I'm rich? Oh, I see. Tommy, you're rich. It's supposed to say, okay. I have a 65-year-old and a 50-year-old in my family. Both are addicts. It's frustrating, at least. Tell me you're rich and successful. It's not the same. Yeah. It really doesn't care. Addiction is a disease of people who can't cope with something, and they use a chemical for the purpose of coping. It's a coping skill that you buy by the gram. And you can be a billionaire and be addicted to dope, and you can have no money whatsoever and be addicted to dope. The only difference is that the people with all kinds of money usually have a whole bunch of shit to run from. I swear to God, more people who are really wealthy. Well, I'm sorry that they drag you down. That's what addiction does to everybody. It's a disease that affects everybody, and that's sad. But it is a disease, right? And we don't give anybody shit about lupus, and we don't give anybody any crap because they have diabetes, because their symptoms, right? Diabetes, dry mouth, you urinate a lot, right? There's symptoms that don't piss anybody off. The symptoms of drug addiction are really, really ugly. Hold on. That's the hard part. Can you try to pick up the pieces financially? Yeah. I mean, I went tits up. I don't know how many times over the course of my addiction. It's a very difficult thing. I can't imagine. I honestly can't imagine growing up the son and the grandson of 2 wildly successful Hollywood actors. I know there are people all over the planet that think, boy, he won the lottery, right? And had this. I mean, you have parents and grandparents that work 280 days a year. You don't see your dad for all of that time. That's they pick your parents to pieces. Yeah, financially, absolutely, that happens. It does, and I did it to my parents. Sometimes it kills me to think of how much money my dad spent trying to help me. Yeah, I agree with you, One Love. So it's one of those things that there isn't an answer for this that's going to make anybody happy. There's never going to be, my son threw food, furniture, punched holes in everything. It's very scary. And your loved one seems to be gone in that moment. You're just lost as a parent. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what happens. And it happens the same way whether you're rich or poor. I think that the frustration of a rich person that just goes, I sent them to this one, I sent them to Betty Ford, I sent them to the most expensive places in the world. Whereas sometimes the people that don't have those means sit down and talk to the kids and say, what is it that you're drinking to get rid of? What is it that you're sticking needles in your arms to get rid of, right? You know, what caused this? And it's a hard thing. It really is. It's a bitch. And you have to get to a place as a parent. Tough love doesn't mean get out of my life. It means that I love you, but I'm not going to let you take advantage of me ever again. If they're giving your relative thousands of dollars a week, that has to stop. Because all you're doing at that point, you're not loving your kid. You're enabling your kid to be a junkie, right? You have to get to a point where you go, yeah, I love you. Well, they're turning my power off. I'll go down and pay your power, but I'm not going to give you $150 to go pay your power because you're going to buy a bag with it, right? You take somebody shopping who's a junkie and they will take the receipt, go back to the store and try to return everything. Or they'll pick up receipts out of the trash and look for it and say, I got 40 things on this receipt that dad bought me, and then take it back to the store and go, I want to return this. It's a disease that makes the drug more important than your family. It's a disease that makes the drug more important than God. It makes the drug more important than sex, love, God, feelings, everything. And it starts by, taking really small amounts from you. And then by the end, you don't give a crap about you anymore. And everybody around you is just a mechanism to get more dope. And it takes a miracle to get somebody sober. It absolutely takes a miracle. They're a dime a freaking dozen. I've seen thousands of them, but it does take a miracle. Well, parents are very often the worst enablers. And it's a fine line because you go in and a psychiatrist or a psychologist says, you're enabling this kid. He's manipulating you. He's a liar. Kick him out of your house. And you got a kid that your wealth and your privilege, right? People will give this kid dope, even if he doesn't have money, right? People in Hollywood will get him high. He's Rob Reiner's kid. So there are people all over Hollywood that'll let this kid get a couple of grand in debt at any time because they figure there's a decent chance they're going to get paid, right? So now you got a kid that might be doing $500 worth of dope a day, and you kick him out on the street. And if he's out there giving mouth hugs in an alley to get that $500, he's going to blame his parents for that. He's going to go, they got all the money in the freaking world, and I'm selling my body in an alley to get dope. And that's the kind of shit that can cause rage that will absolutely will escalate somebody to a level to do something that they never would have done. And by the way, I'm not saying that happens, right? It is an industry. It's a disgusting industry. The rehab industry in the United States of America is depressing. I mentioned this probably 10 shows ago or something. I started to do rehab content again, right? I haven't done a lot of it, but I started talking about rehab content again. And I used to do it almost exclusively because I used to work with people one-on-one. The sad thing about doing content like this is people reach out and say, hey, can I get help? And I don't answer emails. I don't look at any of that stuff anymore. Too many times getting kicked in the teeth. So there was a company that reached out through a platform through an email that I don't put out at all. But this company said, we'd like to talk to you about a sponsorship. But unfortunately, they're in that business. I said, man, I would take a sponsorship from Monsanto, right? Who owns Bayer, the people that invented heroin. I'd rather have the Sackler family, right, sponsor me than the rehab industry. Because the Sacklers at least are just greedy pieces of shit. They're not selling themselves really as much other than that. The rehab community says, we can help you with all of that. Knowing full well that they're on a 5 or a 6 rehab plan. Just going to keep taking you through all those so that they can get paid that many times, right? It's not a lot of money in curing stuff. There's a ton of money in treating it. If I sound cynical, I've seen it. You know what? I feel your pain. I really do. I worked in the rehab industry and seriously considered getting my LADC. Unfortunately, the trauma I suffered working in that industry has turned me away from it. You and a lot of other people. Right? You and a lot of other people. This story. First of all, this happened in Brentwood, California, right? Very nice neighborhood. This happened about a mile away in the same neighborhood. and about a mile away from where Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were killed at OJ's place. This is a place where the very wealthy and the elite live, and this reminded me sort of the Menendez, right? You had, except the Menendez, there were two perpetrators, but they went in there and killed their parents. Now, whether or not you think the Menendez brothers were molested or not, there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that the father was probably a dirtbag. That evidence didn't come out at the time, but you see these ultra rich parents, super successful, and these kids are going to Beverly Hills High School, and you just think, shit, right? If you hurt somebody when they're young, it doesn't matter whether you're rich and you hurt them because you got enough money to be on private jets and you're not home, or you're a guy that comes home from work drunk and walks right in and goes to bed after hitting your wife, their mom. That kind of trauma is just going to go with them like a backpack that they put on. And they're going to figure out a way to get that backpack off. And it can be journaling and yoga and talking to psychiatrists and just working for, let's say, 4 fixes when you first start at 8 hours of whack. Well, it's a lot easier, isn't it? You just fix. There's a reason they call it fixing, because every single person that does it is broken, and that drug will make you feel like you're not broken, right? There's that whole fix thing didn't come out by accident. I knew a guy in prison that had a tattoo that said, "I'm broken," in really big letters, and in small ones below it, it said, "I need a fix." And it's just depressing as shit, but it's the truth. And we're going to hear a lot more about this case. This is going to be something that they're going to be talking about a lot. But I like the fact that there are people in the chat who are saying we should probably be talking about maybe what happened to the kid too. And I don't think Rob Reiner was molesting the kid. I don't think it's something like that. But anytime we can bring up tough love, I really like bringing up tough love. Tough love says, I'm not going to let you be a junkie. I'm not letting you take any money from me, and I'm not letting you abuse me, but I'm going to stay in your life, and I'm going to do anything I can to make sure that this doesn't continue. I love you. I'm not leaving you. I'm not going to say get out, but I sure as hell am not going to let you abuse me, your mother, right? I'm not going to let you break laws, tear my house to shreds, but to say get out. At the lowest point of your kid's life, if your response is get out, I don't think that ever worked well. And there are people who go, but so-and-so kicked out my son and it worked absolutely beautifully, or they kicked out my brother. What you mean is he may have stopped doing dope, but the damage that gets done to these people in the process, if you stop doing dope because you figured out a way to get off it, but you hate your family for the rest of your life, or you think they hate you, that's a shit trade-off. I promise you it is. It turns people into jaded, hard, ugly people. And jaded, hard, ugly people sometimes do really jaded, hard, ugly things. And this is probably the top of the food chain for that. Killing your mother and father is about as nasty as it gets. I'm glad there was no one else in the house. But being that this is Brentwood, there's not much chance that they don't have video of everybody that could have come and gone to that house. There was no sign of a break-in, right? I think it's fairly safe to assume, I think it's fairly safe to assume that this kid did it. The LAPD surely believes that that's the case. Lumen says it rarely works. I agree with you. I think it rarely works. Renee B., you're wrong. You'll absolutely be able to make a difference. You will absolutely be able to make a difference. And do you know why? Because you're a person sitting here thinking I won't be able to make a difference. It's the assholes with 9 letters after their name who think that they can cure people or just get jaded and don't care. Right? You'll hear people in the industry who you'll go, oh my God, I can't believe you do this for a living. Right? There are break rooms. There are places you guys will hang out when there's nobody around, and when they go, yeah, this dude's a waste. He'll be back in 6 days. That's the kind of shit. And it's those kind of attitudes, and you get jaded. My biggest piece of advice to you would be seek mental health counseling while you're doing it, because you're taking on all of that. And it almost killed me. I promise you it did. So talk to people while you're doing it, or it's going to really mess with your serenity and your happiness. In the beginning, it won't. In the beginning, you feel like you're a warrior, and it's a really cool thing, and it will feel fantastic because you are helping people. You'll be able to reach them on a level you understand that a lot of people don't. The number of people that go into that line of work that have never, ever gotten high on anything is terrifying to me. It really is. It doesn't mean that you can't learn everything, but these are people that have feeling issues. And when they know that you have felt something that they have felt, there's a connection that instantly starts. And the opposite of addiction, as all of you know, is connection. Katie, what are you doing? It's a big cat. All right, people. I'm going to keep talking about this. There will be updates as we find out about them. But let's recap real quick. Both of them, Rob Reiner and his beautiful wife were murdered in their Brentwood home. Their son has been arrested and is locked up right now without bail. Don't listen to that $4 million stuff. There is no $4 million bail. I actually reached out to the jail. 14, one love, 14. He was doing drugs at the age of 14. And by all accounts, that drug was cocaine. My guess would be that it's a pretty ugly industry. And here's the thing. It's not that a lot of kids won't try drugs. But if you feel alone and you have something that is eating you on the inside, like you feel hollow, two brothers can go do cocaine. And if one of them it doesn't have any of those things in their life, they're going to do a sniff and go, ooh, kind of makes your heart race, doesn't it? And the other one's going to do it and go, you know what? For 8 hours, I didn't give a shit. And I don't know what was going on with him, one love. But it's a really ugly, disgusting industry. Right? That's the nastiest industry on planet Earth. It really is. It's the city of dreams. Yeah, bad ones. Yeah, there are people that make it. The vast majority of people that go out there to try never do. There's all kinds of casting couch BS and all of these things. It's just ugly, man. It's just absolutely ugly. But it's really, really disgusting. And I think growing up in that environment under the best of circumstances destroys people, right? We saw books recently written that I'm glad my mom died. You remember that one? The girl from that grew up a child actor wrote about her mom. That's pretty ugly shit. Some jackass could have been mad at Rob and got his son addicted. Hollywood is a cesspool. It's the truth. Or just wanted to get closer to him, right? Marlon Brando's kid. In prison, vicious drug problem. Hollywood creates this. This happens all the time. It's sad but true. All right, people, I will see you on the next one. My name is Tommy. Between now and then, if you hear somebody that says this guy deserved it because he was a Democrat, don't talk to him. Get him out of your life. These people are sick.